I'd like to start off with both directors here. So we've got Bruce Miller. Dr. Miller is a behavioral neurologist who holds the A.W. and Mary Margaret Clausen Distinguished Professorship in Neurology at the University of San Francisco. He directs the Memory and Aging Center here at UCSF. His goal is the delivery of model care to all patients who enter the clinical and research programs. Dr. Miller's research focuses on brain and behavioral relationships, as well as the genetic and molecular underpinnings of disease. His work in frontotemporal dementia emphasizes both the behavioral and emotional deficits that characterize these patients, while noting the visual creativity that can emerge in the setting of FTD. Through the help of the Hellman Center, Dr. Miller's vision for the Memory and Aging Center has incorporated an artist in residence to help bring arts to patients, caregivers, and Memory and Aging Center staff, and I highly recommend checking out our new incoming artist. In addition, he helps lead two philanthropy-funded research consortia, the Tau Consortium and the Consortium for Frontotemporal Research, and is the scientific director for the philanthropic organization, the Douglas French Alzheimer's Foundation. While I'm up here, I'm also going to introduce Robin Riddle, who is the co-founder of the largest PSP CBD support group in the United States with over 150 members. The group holds 9 caregiver-only meetings each year and has been almost 10 years in existence. Robin sends out about 100 emails a year to group members, keeping them up to date on PSP and CBD and relevant Alzheimer's news, and sharing information of general interest to caregivers. The group evolved into a nonprofit organization called the Brain Support Network in late 2012. In addition to coordinating the local support group, BSN also assists families in Northern and Central California and anywhere within the United States in making arrangements for brain donation. BSN has helped over 160 families donate a loved one's brain.
Thanks so much, Christine. Robin, Adam Boxer, really honored to be here. I know many of you have a loved one or you yourself are afflicted by a very, very tough disease. And I want to talk a little bit about why I think there's so much hope in 2014. And I think certainly people in our program and across the world have given PSP, CBD, and related disorders, great attention and approaching it with very high intensity. Here's Memory and Aging Center at our annual retreat this year. We have about 27 faculty, 150 employees, many focused around tau-related neurodegenerative diseases such as PSP. We were formed in 1998. We have 160 employees. We are right next to this building now in the new Sandler Neuroscience building. Between our 239,000 square feet of neuroscience, Rock Hall adjacent to us, 190,000 square feet, Genentech Hall here, about 50,000 square feet devoted to neuroscience, and the Gladstone, another 50,000. We think we're the biggest neuroscience effort focused on neurodegenerative disease in the world. We see about 3,000 new patients and 5,000 follow-up. And if you see us clinically, we certainly offer research to you. Here's our new building, which I think many of you have been in and have seen today. So we are tucked into neurology, very, very big and I think a distinguished program led by Steve Hauser and within University of California, San Francisco. Focused a lot on education, patient care, and research. I'm going to talk about research, but I do urge you to look at our website that has been put together by Carolyn Latham, and any suggestions, ideas, we'd love your thoughts about that. So put in perspective the research effort within neurology here at UCSF. This is 2012. In neurology, we had $70 million from the NIH, twice as much as the next largest NIH-funded center, which is UCLA. I think that with young people like Adam and Rabinovici and Christine Walsh, Suzee Lee, our funding is going to continue to increase. So you're here because you're interested in tau-related neurodegenerative diseases, and there are a number of them. I started studying the behavioral variant frontotemporal dementia in the 1980s and realized that people were sending me patients with PSP who had behavioral syndromes. And so I became very interested in that link, and the group here, particularly Adam, have really pushed forward our understanding of these links between tau-related neurodegenerative diseases, including PSP. And I think one of the themes is there's a lot of problems with movement, and there are also a number of cognitive behavioral syndromes. So why is it important to put all these diseases on one page? Because we think if we cure one of these, we have a cure for all of them. And I'll just say a word about how we are approaching this in 2014. So these are all of these tau-positive related neuropathologic entities: Pick's disease, corticobasal degeneration, PSP, agrophilic grain disease. And again, all of these diseases are caused by the abnormal deposition of this tau protein that was discovered by Mark Kirshner here on the UCSF campus. So this is, I think, PSP central. We have to figure out a way of changing that tau protein. One of the things that has happened to our program that has really given huge life to this whole research effort is because Michael Geschwind is such a fine clinician, someone who had been misdiagnosed across New York State, who was very wealthy, came to UCSF, and Michael and Suzee Lee diagnosed PSP. This gentleman said, money's no object, bring the best people in the world to figure out how to cure my disease and cure anyone who has PSP or related diseases. And so that's what we have done, and we meet twice a year. We're going to meet in June here in San Francisco, and we have put together, I think, a Manhattan-style project focused around how to cure tau-related neurodegenerative diseases. We have Nobel laureate Stan Prusner, who's looking for drugs that'll lower tau in our building. He talks with Adam or me or Michael almost every week about how to bring his drugs into the clinic. We've made tau mice at the Gladstone across the way and in Bonn, Germany. Our amazing collaborators at Washington University have developed an antibody, and I think Adam may talk a little bit about that today, and are also working on other ways of getting rid of that abnormally folded tau protein. Lee Gann at the Gladstone has a new drug that is related to aspirin that we think may be very exciting, and we're just pushing forward to the possibility that that may come into the clinic. We have a group we call they call themselves the garbage cleaners, and they focus on how to get rid of bad proteins in the cell. And Anna Maria Cuervo from Einstein leads this group. It's an amazing group. Dan Finley focuses on the proteasome. And then we have lots of work. How do we identify this in the early stages? How do we figure out who has this disease before they really get sick? Because we ultimately think if we're going to have a very effective cure, we need to get people very early. And I'll just show you a couple of the things that we have done. So some of the people in our tau-related effort have this rare tau variant, and nobody knew what this meant. We now know about maybe 2% of people with PSP carry this funny variation of tau. Instead of AA, they have AT. So we've taken IPS technology here, which means you take a skin cell, convert it into a neuron. 2012 Nobel laureate here, Shinya Yamanaka, devised this technique. We discovered that if you carry this polymorphism, you are probably 3 times more likely to get PSP. You don't always get it, but it is a potent risk factor for PSP and Alzheimer's disease. How did we prove that this causes these tau-related neurodegenerative diseases? Well, we took skin cells, and from some of you, converted them into neurons and discovered that we have abnormal aggregation of tau in those neurons. Everything that we see here in red shouldn't be there. We correct that one gene, make it AA, which almost all of us carry, and the disease goes away. We give that person an extra T, and there is massive neurodegeneration. So this is how we can prove in a test tube how your genes can affect your susceptibility to this, and how we might correct this problem. And also, we can, now in cell culture, study you individually and think about drugs that might help you. Here's our acetylation work with an aspirin-like compound developed by Lee Gann. You'll hear more about this, I think, in the new year. Here's our garbage cleaners, and they think about how to get rid of that bad tau in the cell. Can we get it into the lysosome where we can break it down? And I think you're seeing now an acceleration of drugs focus on getting rid of that bad tau in the cell. Okay. Work with Washington University and Stan Prusner here shows that you misfold one tau protein, it spreads along a specific circuit. So one bad tau protein spreads to the next cell. And we think that tau antibodies and other strategies like this may prevent the spread. So this is a story that Adam Boxer has developed in an incredibly fast way. Stay tuned. I want to show one last slide, which this doesn't seem to want me to show, so maybe I shouldn't show it. Huh? Okay, but I just wanted to emphasize that your tissue, when you send it to UCSF, is going to people across the world. We are doing whole genome on your blood. We are looking at gene expression. Giovanni Coppola at UCLA has just shown epigenetic change. If you have PSP, there's an abnormality that happens to your genome that increases your susceptibility. Your tissue goes to Albert Einstein, Bonn, Germany, across the world to think about autophagy, the proteasome. The brain bank is sending tissue to Washington University to develop better drug tests, Harvard University, better blood sample tests. So this is, I think, a worldwide problem. We need worldwide solutions, and I think this is why what we do and what Robin does is so important. So thank you.
Hi there, I just wanted to welcome everyone here. It's a real honor that Brain Support Network was asked to collaborate with the Memory and Aging Center on this event today. We think we're so lucky in California to have UCSF Memory and Aging Center. It is one of the world's top PSP research institutions, and we're so lucky to have them right in our backyard. One evidence of this is that a couple of years ago there were 2 experimental drug trials going on around the world, and UCSF was the lead institution on one of those drug trials, which is just incredible that we have such experts right in our own backyard. So we're very honored to be here. The story of Brain Support Network actually starts with my dad. I think most of you are here because you have some family connection to PSP or CBD, and I did as well and do. 10 years ago this week, actually, my dad was diagnosed with PSP by a general neurologist in the state of Florida. And his first symptoms were falls, very unexplained falls, just kind of out of the blue. He would stumble and fall. His speech was very slurred, and he had cognitive issues and behavioral personality changes. He would get irrationally angry at my grandmother after she had just had a stroke, and he said, that B lady doesn't have a good memory, what's wrong with her? And that was just very unlike my dad to use such language about his own mother and to have been so irrational about that. So we did get him diagnosed. He had PSP. We were very lucky that just a few months after he was diagnosed here in San Francisco, there was a Cure PSP event for families, very similar to today's event. And I asked that a handout sheet go around and a sign-up sheet go around, and people asked people to please sign your name if you were interested in getting together again or forming a support group. And there were 4 people who responded. So the 4 of us got together and started a support group. Now, we started from 4, and as Christine mentioned, we have 150 PSP and CBD members now, so we've grown a long way. We've been meeting about 10 years. We have a caregiver-only support group meeting in San Mateo. We certainly invite all the caregivers here to participate. Many of you are already in our support group and have come to our meetings. We learned very early on, I remember, the other 3 people in the support group seemed to have a very different disorder that they were dealing with than I was dealing with. And I was dealing with, as I mentioned, cognitive issues, personality changes, falls, of course, and slurred speech. but they weren't dealing with cognitive issues and they weren't dealing with personality changes. And I wondered, do they really have PSP? Does my dad really have PSP? And someone explained to me very early on, a neurologist actually said, well, there are two very common types of PSP and they look very different. And indeed, I read the research article on this, and there are two common types. My dad had a type called Richardson syndrome, and there's another type called PSP, Parkinsonism. And we only know this because we have that research paper available to us. So one of the other things we offer in our support group is I read research journal articles and send out emails about what the, sort of in layperson terms, what information is there. So we invite you to join our email list as well. Back to that paper that I mentioned that listed the two common types. Well, we know for sure that those people in that paper had PSP because they all donated their brains. Their brains were autopsied and PSP was confirmed. PSP is not always confirmed on brain donation. We see in general, only about, I would say 70% of the cases are confirmed to be PSP. The number is much lower in CBD. We only see CBD confirmed about 25% of the time. So you only know what someone has if you donate your brain. And I asked my dad very early on if he would donate his brain. And he was very happy to because he thought this was important information for his children to have, but also he wanted to help other people deal with this disease and help other people by enabling the research through brain donation. So I made the arrangements to donate my dad's brain, and I said, God, this is a little bit hard. How are other families going to do this? So I started helping other families in our support group, and we've now helped 50 people in Northern California donate a loved one's brain and have helped 160 people nationally donate a brain. And these are really big numbers. Some brain banks only have 150 brains, so it's quite a large number. And we really encourage brain donation. We talk to people all the time about it. And I'd like to be very clear that a brain donation, that's one of the most precious things you can donate is a brain. So it's very important to think smartly about where you want your brain to go. When people ask me, where should I donate a brain, I usually have two options for them. One is if they are a UCSF Memory and Aging Center patient, then this is the right place for the brain to come because this is where all the research has been done on that person. But if you haven't been to UCSF and are not a MAC patient, then the best place to donate the brain is the National PSP and CBD Brain Bank, which is at the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. And those two places are places that we assist for brain donation. So we're very happy to assist your family in brain donation as well. So we're very honored to have been asked by UCSF to participate in the event today, and I'm so glad to meet so many new people. Thank you so much.